I don't know what happened that time. So I was really like, not under drugs, because this is the wrong saying, but I was under an ideology, like a brainwashed person somehow. I knew I'm not gonna fail. On the middle of May, I think it was May 10th when the message started, and there are some rememberings. It was not only good times, because I was so exhausted. Sometimes I slept 3 nights not in a row and stuff like that, which is not good and not to recommend to anybody. So this guitar also educated me how not to go ahead with my life and my work as a luthier.
This week's episode of Life with Strings Attached is a continuation of my conversation with Ulrich Teuffel, Part 2. I highly suggest you go back and listen to Part 1 if you haven't heard it yet. If you have, thank you for rejoining us, and I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Today's episode of Life with Strings Attached was filmed on location in southern Germany in the workshop of Ulrich Teuffel. Teuffel has been building electric guitars since 1988. He is a trained automotive mechanic and studied industrial design in the 1990s. His models Birdfish, Tesla, Niwa, and Antonio are radically independent, but always follow a leitmotif. They can now be found in the museums and collections, as well as the hands of other musicians such as David Thorn, Kirk Hammett, Billy Gibbons, Henry Kaiser, Ludwig Göransson, and Hans Zimmer. For Ulrich Teuffel, Leo Fender is the most important guitar maker of the 20th century. For many of today's guitar makers, Teuffel's work exists on its own plane, elevated to a level that few will ever achieve. For me, Ulrich, or Uli, as he's commonly known among friends, has been a refreshing and inspiring colleague and friend. Together, we can explore concepts and ideas that stretch and challenge each other, feeding our minds and souls. I find conversations with Uli exceptionally invigorating. I hope that you will too. And so, this is very interesting to me. For whatever reason, I actually speak quite a bit about this pursuit of perfection and the rejection, or what I might call futurism and golden years sort of thinking. Some are looking to reenact the moment, and that's sort of the golden years impulse. This is the Harley Davidson, this is the Holy Grail Les Paul sort of idea. They're inspired by a moment and they want to relive it again and again. Great, have at it. And there are others who are inspired at new possibilities, and this is the futurist. For me, I've always been more of the futurist, not looking back. I look back when I have to justify my new ideas to support in the history, right?
Right, yeah.
To test them. And so, but it never occurred to me to mix the idea that the Birdfish was made during this rejection period. And you said something to me when we were speaking yesterday that stuck with me, and it's really surprising to me. And I want to understand if I got it right. But I've always made the assumption that the Birdfish happened over a fairly long period of time with a lot of development and thinking on it. And yesterday, if I understood you correctly, the Birdfish started with an impetus of, will you come to the Music Messe? From the folks at Bogner, Reinhold Bogner, and his associate, who's the one who asked you, Micah, was it, or something of the sort, who asked you to come, and you agreed, and the show was 3 or 4 months later, and there was no such thing as a Birdfish when you agreed. You just knew you needed to make something, and you created the Birdfish in this. I don't want to make too much of it, but it seemed to me like perhaps a intense sort of
it was intense,
frenzy sort of period where you went really strong into it, and I think you mentioned you lost a substantial amount of weight. And really, will you allow us to come into this moment of your life? Can you tell me about? This is a reframing for me of something that I thought I was very familiar with.
Yeah, look, when I was. I often got asked about the development of the Birdfish, how it happened, and I didn't tell the truth that it happened in such a short time and in such an exhausting time to come at least to the prototypes of the Birdfish, because people would not believe that, and I was afraid that people might believe if I would say something like that maybe someone else, a company developed it for me or so. Because when people are looking at these guitars, or when people approach me via email, they are always asking us as a company, how many guitars are you producing? Oh, hi, you folks. I love your guitars.
Yeah.
They don't think that it's a one-person thing because it looks too much corporate, this guitar. And therefore, I have to be careful with what I tell about the guitar. And if I would say I did this really yesterday, I told you the truth because I'm old enough and people get it can't get it now or accept it now.
Won't do any damage to you at this point.
Yeah, it doesn't do damage.
Yeah.
But I had the feeling that would do damage and people would expect that this guitar takes 1 year of development. So in some interviews I said 1 year and maybe even the idea was a couple of years older and stuff. But more recently I said, yeah, it's half a year or maybe it was 4 months, 4.5. But I remember that there was a kind of idea, but it took me a while really to start with that because it was very complicated. It was so new for me to work with metal cast and all that, and to cast in the pickups into something I have never done molding before, making molds, and the first Birdfish pickups on the prototypes had a kind of rectangular shape, but still an organic shape and dedicated. So in December, in the beginning of December, I have never done any mold for metal, any cast, not cast by myself, but by a company, but deliver the necessities for the cast, the shape and that.
Yeah.
No mold for epoxy or polyurethane casting for the pickups and all that. But I knew that has to be done in order to build this guitar. I don't know what happened that time. So I was really not under drugs because this is the wrong saying, but I was under an ideology, like a brainwashed person somehow. I knew I'm not going to fail. On the middle of May, I think it was May 10th when the message started, and there are some rememberings, and it was not only good times because I was so exhausted. Sometimes I slept 3 nights not in a row and stuff like that, which is not good and not to recommend to anybody. So this guitar also educated me how not to go ahead with my life and my work as a luthier. Otherwise, I will lose the trust in myself to be able to work as a luthier, because this can't be a life. But it happened that in this autopilot mode, I got it ready that all the 5 guitars I presented there were serious guitars, not chrome-plated yet, but you could play all of them, and it's like the prototypes of the prototypes of Robin yesterday we saw in his thesis.
Yes.
Robin Verso guitars. Yeah. The prototypes that showed different stages. There were already prototypes that could have been presented to a show. Nevertheless, the final guitar he presented at his thesis was more developed, but he took more time probably on his guitar. It was not in such a rush. But for me, it was clear I have to be ready with the guitar there, and I was ready there. And after that, it was clear that because all the details that I made there were much too time consuming, then be possible and quality scary than to be implemented into a serial production. So I had to solve that later after the show. So my only goal is I have to present the guitar there. I got a guitar bag for the Birdfish. The first bag was made from felt from a company which is here because I wanted to use felt, which was the only dedication to a design trend, because the 90s was felt in interior design. So it was felt, And it was already the handle sticking out, and that, but felt didn't work because it peels off like on a pullover. So you had all these balls of wool. So later I switched to leather, but it was an intense process, and it was just not credible. Because time was too short, and as I told you, my weight was 80 kilograms at 1.85 m before the show, before the Birdfish, and at the Messe, I was 70 kilograms. So I lost 10 or maybe even more. Until to the Messe, and I was really exhausted. So friends who came to the Messe, because they knew it's the first Messe, the first presentation. So friends from my studies from everywhere came, and some who haven't seen me for 4 months saw me at the Messe and said, "Oh, you look different. What happened to you?" And it was, it was that process of building the guitar. Yeah. So some of the ideas of the Birdfish were older already, and some pre-tests and stuff, so that I knew that this is going to work, have no idea for it yet, but okay, this is going to work. And so I had some ideas, and that all flew into, so I knew it's going to work, what I do. The problems was only, how do you get pickups into a shape that doesn't look like PAF? Because this is not going to work on the Birdfish. Otherwise, it would be cheaper to order a guitar at Thomann. To take the jigsaw and a spray, and just to do some minor modifications and bring it to the show, put on your logo, spray it. So this is also a Birdfish. Yeah, it's okay, you can do that. But for me, it was clear everything has to look differently, so I have to go deeply into that. And that was always the doubtfulness, will I really get that finished? And I remember that the pickups for the guitar, I used Dimasio pickups and Seymour Duncan, the bobbins. So I slaughtered the pickups that I had here or ordered. And I remember that time I had the problems that when I casted them in, and I did not know it because time was too short. I did not know that how to check the polarity of a pickup without hearing it. So the only way I was used to, due to my repair times, to hear the polarity is if you have one pioneer pickup, so to say, and listen to the other ones, switch to it if it's out of phase or in phase. And coming from a technical background, from electronic and technical engineering already on my high school, it's so simple to find that out with a voltage meter or a current meter and just a nail or a screwdriver, something like that. So there's two ways you approach the pickup. So the needle goes this way, and when you disapproach, then the needle goes right the opposite way. Or opposite, when you approach, then it goes left side or right side. So the polarity is this or that is positive or negative, and it does not matter sound-wise if you choose for the pioneer, so to say, negative or positive. So I'm not sure, and I didn't remember. I was not in the position to take time and to consider, with my skills that I had, to find out do the pickups have the right polarity. And the problem was they were cast in, and I had the problem that 15 of the pickups, because I made so many pickups, 15 of the pickups were ready, and only 9 of them worked the right way, because I wired them inside, and so I listened to the pickups while playing the single bobbins and marked it somehow, but I confused it then, and 7 pickups didn't work. And it was such a huge disappointment, and it happened only, this disappointment, because I could not take the time to theoretically think about what I should do. Later I did it. I figured out that this listening method worked for guitar repairs, because you wired the pickups after the manual, after the manual of the pickups, and pickups together just by listening to it. This is what all luthiers do.
Right.
And later, right after the show, I took the opportunity to find the proper evaluation, which all pickup makers, I assume, are using, like approaching positive. So I call on the pickup, my pickups are all positive by approach. I know some pickups are negative by approach, and it has no impact into the tone. The tone is exactly the same. The problem is only if you combine positive with negative, then it's out of phase. So, but you can switch the negative one, then you have the other one positive, or you can switch the positive one, then you have both negative. That's all. And it's so simple to find out. When I wind my pickups now, it's always the polarity test, like screwdriver, ding, 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 looking where the arrow is going on the meter, and that's all. And stuff like that happened, and that happened 2 days before the show, and so it was really exciting. And I realized, thank God, still 9 pickups are working. So I can go to the show. What if it had happened that only 2 pickups are working? Everything is just for the scrap heap, for nothing. Everything is lost. So this was really almost traumatic. Because I didn't sleep and stuff. So it really worked in myself. And after that, I decided never again. Never again in such a rush.
You know, I know a number of people who have told me, particularly the very creative, unusual guitars, have told me that their process was this guitar came like in a moment where they just started at it, and they went in an unreasonable amount without sleep to make it happen. Jens Ritter has described the shaping of some of his more elaborate instruments like the Jupiter bass and such as one of these. You know, I went to the workshop and started carving wood and came out like 30 hours later or something, you know, without having stopped to sleep or eat or whatever. And
but this is good. This happens still to me, and this is good when it's only about a shape, you know?
Yes.
When you know, it's so satisfying. The shape develops, and you are so happy with that. This happens still, and this is absolutely fine, and it's a boost. But my problem was, I have to solve technical problems that will be, in terms of a digital yes or no, absolute questions like death or alive. In many reasons, casting the pickups, wiring the pickups, doing the metal cast, it was always like, you know, you can say even like a soldier. It's almost like a soldier who is always in a near battle. So not many survive 25 near battles. Some survive, but those who survived that always had the exposure. Will I survive the order today or not? Next day or next week, the same thing. So the likelihood that you survive that is very low. And the challenge is always, maybe the comparison is much, much too hard. But for me, it was clear in that time, I will have to be there at the messe, and it's not clear if this idea and this manufacturing way will work. If it won't, so the neck was just, you know, nothing. It was a nap. The tone bars, nothing. It's woodwork. It's, I mean, making guitars is the most simple thing, but doing these new things. So I was really afraid, and that was the problem of my loss of weight. So the typical creativity process that you do it in a rush and you get into a flow, this is something positive. This doesn't exhaust you. I mean, you need sleep after that, but it doesn't change your thinking about how oftenly can you do that. Take care for your life.
That's super important. And it's one of the main things we talk about when I'm talking with guitar makers and they're talking about what they're trying to accomplish and such is, you know, what kind of life are you trying to live? Because there's the numbers, there's the spreadsheet, there's the, you know, the realities of economics, but, you know, we don't make guitars because we're trying to, you know, become a billionaire. You know, you're trying to make guitars because it's the life you want, and it needs to pay the economic realities of the life you want, right? And that's the reason that people make guitars,
Mhm.
you know. And so, yeah, it's really, you have to realize, is this sustainable or is this not sustainable? And what
Mhm.
does my life look like if I do this all the time?
Mhm.
You know, it'd be disaster. That's a really extreme example that you're talking about. And do, the commitment to Wagner at the Messe, I mean, this was a really hard timeline. And honestly, a lot of people that I encounter in the world today very likely would have said, you know what, I can't actually get this done. Cedar Creek Custom Case Shop is your premier fretted instrument custom case maker, and we invite you to create a musical instrument case unlike any other, one that's unique to you. Every Cedar Creek custom case is hand-built by highly skilled craftspeople using only select woods, Providence Forge hardware, and premium instrument-friendly materials. At Cedar Creek Custom Case Shop, we are dedicated to helping you design the case of your dreams. Find out more at cedarcreekcases.com. So, you made this commitment to Wagner and the Music Messe?
But the commitment was not the problem. It was about my credibility against myself.
Yes.
So for Wagner, it would have been nice if I would not show up at the Messe. They have twice as much space. So where's the problem? I have already paid for. So that was not the problem, that Micha and Wagner expected me to be there. Otherwise, they would have a problem. Not at all. So they were suffering with me, of course, because Micha visited me oftenly, and he was a kind of concerned. So what trip I went into doing that, you know.
Okay.
So it was more about, I said I will be there and I have to be there.
Yes,
for myself.
Of course, Uli. But this is something that has maybe changed in the world. And it happens fairly often to me that we have people who are guitar makers like yourself who give me their word that they will be there, they will be a part of something, and then they don't. Some of them, many times, the same guitar maker, you know, who makes commitments and they don't follow through. This is, of course, not unique to guitar makers. It's just people in the world. That commitment is there, and
we are connected with too many people. Not only people around us, but only people all over the world through the networks. And we do too many commitments we can't hold.
Yes, I agree. But when we make them, there seems to be less awareness in the world about the impact of, if you do not make your commitments, then it affects the others in the show, the organizers, the people who plan to attend because there are less interesting things there, all of this. And there is I think the word is accountability. And there are phrases in our culture like, I have to speak my truth, you know, and this is what was right for me. As if that's some way to justify shitty behavior for everyone else. And so I'm not saying that we should, you know, run ourselves to the point of sickness and losing 10 kilos over a short period of time. But I do think that there is something about when you say you do something, you do everything you can do to make sure that happens. You know, and we triangulate our position in our world, in our society and our economies, our cultures, based on what we know to be true. Right? You know certain things about the properties of the woods and the materials that you're working. And actually, during the pandemic period, there was issues where suppliers were changing because of shortages.
Oh, yeah.
They were changing the chemical composition of finishes.
Oh,
guitar makers were telling me manufacturers, glues, materials.
I didn't know.
And they had a problem in production, and they're trying to figure out, we're doing everything the way we are. So they're assuming the problem is with them. Until they eventually lead down the supply chain to go, you substituted something in my order, but you didn't tell me you substituted something. And now I have this problem where I've done this, this, and this.
It's not the humidity.
It's not the humidity. It's you changed the chemical composition. And so I should have made this adjustment, but I didn't know to do that.
Yeah.
Right. And so we do not live as individuals disconnected to everyone. We're all strings attached. We're all connected in these ways. And there's a real necessity for people to make serious commitments. So I'm not saying that you have to continue on with your choices indefinitely, but maybe reconsider how you make your commitments in the first place, which is what you did. You decided that, you should not make this kind of commitment.
Yeah. It was
in this
too
kind
much
of time again.
Yeah. I underestimated the effort.
Yeah.
When I said I will go to the messe, that was half a year before,
Yes.
But I was still blocked in a university project and couldn't start with the design process of the guitar.
Yes.
That was the problem.
Because you honored both your commitments.
Yeah, because I was in a group. I was in a team. We did an exhibition together, and there was no way to step out because I was responsible for the technical execution of the exhibition construction.
Yes.
And the other ones, like Annette was an excellent graphic designer, and Stefan, the conceptualists, and they had no skills with metalwork. So it was my job, for sure. Yeah, for sure. So there was no way out, and I knew time is getting short. So I saw the dark clouds already at the horizon. Yeah. In summer, that it's gonna be tough. It might become tough for the messe, but don't think about that. Don't think about first solve this problem.
Yeah. And that's. Yeah, learning to organize yourself and commitments is an important part of things.
And the other thing which is very important to me after that is to do projects or new things in a good mode. So I'm really in love with the Tesla also, because the Tesla was, when I designed the Tesla, so to say, is my very positive relationship, no borderliner. Relationship. And when I designed the Tesla, it was a workflow full of positivity. And it happened that I designed the Tesla much early enough before a show because it came out of an idea. And I had a friend of mine, Achim, who was playing in a band, who was the appropriate test dummy, so to say, for this guitar. So we worked together. I did some things on the guitar. He tested it out if it suited his needs. And it was a very good workflow for me. And it was also positively. I think this is what you mentioned when you told about Jens doing something. So one stone fit to one puzzle piece fit to the next, and everything clicked, worked perfectly together. And it was so satisfying. Maybe this is also, I have a good heart for the Tesla, and there's something with the Birdfish which is still a burden. So because this child really costed me years in my life expectations, so to say.
Yeah.
The Tesla not. The Tesla is my good relationship.
That's interesting because there's another guitar friend in common, Michael Spalt, whom I have a real affection for his Nouveau series that he did.
Yeah.
One of my first involvements with him. Michael has a hard time with this one, not because of the guitars, but because it happened in an intense time where he was moving his life from California to Vienna, and there wasn't enough time. And so building these guitars was a very stressful time for him, and is connected to it. And so he has a hard time appreciating them.
Yes.
As you can say you appreciate the Tesla. And it seems to me you're expressing the same sort of thing, that the Birdfish is a wonderful guitar, but it's also related to a stressful time for you in the creation of it. And so it's not even almost 30 years later, it's not still free of the burden of the
It's
frame.
almost, because it's only these 3 months,
Yeah.
which were so destructive. But I have overcome this in the work when I make the Birdfish. I really love to work on that guitar and to did all the minor developments on the instrument. So, but looking back in my life, I come to the point that, when I remember, like when I told you the Tesla might have been differently, I have never thought about that. That was just an instantaneous thought about that. Oh yes, just this moment now. The Tesla was positive. The Tesla was, it was so different from the Birdfish. I just realized that. So maybe it's very subconsciousness. You try to get it away from your brain when it's hurting you.
Yes, and even your Niwa, which you still refer to as Coco somehow in your mind,
was also very positive. Yeah. Because it was the discovering of a new world for me, and it was so positive. Yeah. It was under a medium time pressure, I would say, under just a regular time pressure. Yeah. So I already worked with the coding and everything, and with the machine, and I knew it's gonna work, but it takes now these hours really to solve the details. But no doubt that it's not gonna work.
Yeah. You make it.
That was also very encouraging.
Yeah. And it was a second crack at a concept also, right? I mean, there's the Coco, which there were some material problems with and response problems with and such that meant the stopping of the production of that.
Yeah,
and
with the allergy and that,
Yeah, so you had a chance to, no matter how the fans, and I know you're not a Star Wars person, feel about it, but George Lucas, 20, 30 years later, redid the movies with the new technology to do the things he couldn't do the first time. And so there were things which were kind of puppets in the first one, which he could now do a bit digitally and things that, and to me, your experience with the Niwa is a bit of, there's a lot of the shared ideas from Coco, but and
the identity
is definitely
and it's the Coco. There was something with the Coco also. The mold process, lamination and all that was a promise to me. It allowed me to make a guitar that you wouldn't do by cutting it off from wood. Not possible. But, and I'm a person who loves to learn new things, and it somehow floods me with endorphins when I get a grip on new things. So that happened with the Coco also, with working with carbon fiber, with doing molds. Everything worked out nicely, but there was some feeling, and the guitar was excellent, but there was some feeling that the process to build a guitar like that maybe is not my cup of tea. So I invested a lot of time into the development process of the Coco, not prototype, but of the Coco series was much longer than those 3 months of the Birdfish hardcore. But somehow doing it with a mold was not, I don't know how to say, it just didn't feel right. But it was, I was driven by the endorphins of the process.
Yeah, sure.
And at the end, it was a solid instrument, a statement. But I love to build guitars from wood.
Yeah.
Only from wood. And it happened that when I started with a 5-axis machine, there was a way now to do that from wood. And so I did it in a only positive way.
Yeah.
I had the endorphins of working, of learning how to program 5-axis machines, how to run that machine. So this is the typical thing for me, learning new things is the first moment a challenge, but it's always so satisfying to me. So this was satisfying. And then solving the wrong suit or the wrong environment for the cocoa, so to say, because it was not cut from wood only. It had a wooden core and it was laminating and so. So I'm not against carbon fiber.
Yeah,
this is excellent, but it's not maybe it's not my language.
Yeah.
You know, and solving that and coming at the end to a guitar that has also improved proportions to me from the standpoint of a designer or a shape man.
Yeah.
Improved proportions, and it was a wooden guitar, and it was very positive.
Yeah.
Maybe it was really intense, maybe I worked many hours, but I have no bad rememberings. Zero. Was only positive.
Yeah. Yeah. I can relate to this feeling of learning new things and accomplishing things, but not needing to say that I'm now a carbon fiber guitar man, you know, like in this way. I'm okay to let it go. And it's not even necessarily a failure. Many times it's a success. It works. And that's enough.
Yeah.
That's enough. And I think some people have a hard time understanding that because they've looked at my career and they thought, well, Jamie was this, but now he's this. And now he's doing this. And now and they think that, oh, they didn't work. It didn't work. I said, it's not that it didn't work. For me, that's good.
Yeah.
And I had to realize eventually that actually in my own skill set and knowing my own limitations, I love the creative aspect. And it's the creation of the concepts and the implementation of them and then achieving them, but not the maintaining of them. When it gets to the maintenance part, it's better that I hire a manager and have them get in there because actually my need to create will become a problem for the business because the business is functioning very well. But Jamie needs change. And so I start fucking around with when it's working just fine. I shouldn't do that. And it's one of the reasons that I rely so heavily on partners these days is that I can create something and then I can put someone else on the work, and then I can create something and put someone else on the work, and so that's been the way that I find that I can do this. And for me, it's a broad experience of many different things is most interesting. And you know, your work is a testament also of, although you will reproduce them for now decades, it still is experience in metal fabrication and casting and epoxy and new methods. And you're always refining and always making, you know, little improvements and changes and exploring new ideas, new finishes. We've moved from chrome to rhodium and then to nickel and soft touch finishes. And, you know, you're exploring different concepts and different ideas all the time. And I think that creativity needs to be there, but yet you manage in a way to work by yourself and not screw up what you've done. That danger that I have where I need the change, you've managed to make the Birdfish now for almost 30 years. And
almost, you're right.
And not ever make any substantial change that can ruin the business. And you know, there are many creatives which are so different than that. You know, the Thierry Andres, the Claudio Pagellis, you know, where they need to do something new every time. You know, and there's not an establishment of something that they can actually sell again and again and again. And this is a real challenge for business. I'm not saying they're, you know, having a hard time with their business, but it would be easier for them to establish something that they could make and sell 10 times or 100 times. But some people,
but really they don't like to.
They don't like to
sell 10 times or 100 times.
100
times neither me, but 10 times yes, of course. Because there's a quietness in that, and there's a kind of dedication to the time when you do that. It's like a Zen process. So when you are a pole jumper, You call it pole jump when you jump over
Pole vaulting.
Yes,
vaulting. Vault, V-A-U-L-T.
Vault jump.
Vault.
So
Yeah.
I think when I imagine vault jumping, I have never done that. But the problem will be to set yourself into power first to overcome the bar.
Yeah.
And it will be a huge process to learn first to overcome the bar. I'm not talking about a normal jump, but with this vault device, because
where you need the bar.
It needs it needs a certain setup and communication of your body movements.
Yes.
To be able to store all that kinetic energy into lifting into position energy and then getting down.
Yes.
So it's very complicated. But when you are at the moment that you have achieved it to get over the bar, and it's not the 6 meter 20 bar, then it will be maybe when you train that the 4 meter bar.
Yeah.
After that, you have catch the skills, the basic skills, and then it's the process. So it's not done that. You could say, okay, it's done. Next task. What about 100 meter running or so?
Yes.
But the next thing will be, you want to end up at a higher level. You want to get deeper into the details. And then it's about very minor changes, maybe things that you don't know that these are important. And maybe it's only the way how you when you shoe ties in the morning can help you. You will find that out, and this is a kind of Zen process. So you have to jump again and again and again, and it might look like the same jump, but you feel something is different. And you do it every day as a bricklayer, laying brick after brick after brick. This is what you're supposed to do. And if you accept that, and if you recognize the purity in that, then it can be very satisfying to do that. And this is what I realized when I build guitars. In the actual process, this is something that is purely satisfying to me. And since the guitars are so complicated somehow, that was the process before the 4 meters, so to say. This is already done. I have a grip on that. I have it under control. And then it's the small little improvement, laying the brick a little bit better and not putting on so many cement or concrete on so that I have to scratch it off, getting better and better and better. And this is something that no one notices, that it's a very intimate thing. But this is, and now imagine you do that not for a company, for someone who surveys you if you do the job right.
Yes.
If you are in a hand-on job, you do it only for your own voluntary reason, because there is no need to improve yourself and to do all these minor details, because people are going to buy this guitar anyway, because the quality is good enough. All the sales before prove that it's good enough. So why getting better? And why getting better in a way that no one or not many people see that? Some colleagues see that, or people who are ticking the same way. But this is really, really satisfying, and you do it in another state of mind. So I used to listen to audiobooks then, and for me it's a gift. Maybe it sounds a little bit too dramatic, but it's a kind of gift to have a good employer who accepts me as I am, so to say, and who allows me to improve without giving me the feeling that it's not necessary to improve. It's better to be faster because we would make more money. And then listening to audiobooks and living in a parallel world, so to say. So, because it's long novels that I used to listen to. So a novel, an audiobook starts at, so if it's something historical, it can be only 6 hours or so. But if it's a real audiobook, it starts at 12 hours upwards. Otherwise, it's not a process. So otherwise, it would be political podcasts or so
Sure.
for a short time. But this is not what I like to listen to when I work.
Yeah.
So this is very, very satisfying. And this is something that the flow I get into is only possible when I do something that my boss told me to do, and I have 2 weeks time, and I know what I have to do because I have learned to do. But I can do it in another mode as if I would work in a company. I'm not sure if it's clear what I mean.
Yeah,
it's very
it's
satisfying.
clear, except for the fact that you're your own boss. So
I'm my own boss.
You
of
talk
course.
to yourself as a third person, but you're your own boss, and that's but you create the circumstance in which to do that.
I created that circumstance, and so I have the two momentums in my work. One is the endorphin momentum when I do new things. Can be the design of a guitar, but I have 4 models only for certain reasons, because I don't want to communicate in 220 languages. 4 languages are pretty much, and or informations better than language or messages, and so it creates endorphins at all to design a new guitar at all, but also to develop in details, to research on that. But then doing the execution, the daily work, with not the distraction of this endorphinic process, just the quiet process of reenactment of laying brick after brick after brick. This is really satisfying. And at the end, you see the wall stable, beautiful. The gaps maybe were larger at the bottom side of the wall. The higher you come up, the more equal it gets. And you look at the wall and say, oh, it's everything good. And someone who is not into that, he sees it's only a wall. But for you, it's your personal wall, and it means a lot to you. So this production process is like a cure. Just building a guitar is something like a cure. And I understand what, for instance, Claudio means, and other guitar makers, that they can't make the same guitar again and again.
Yeah.
And I understand what they mean. But for me, there is so much cure in that. Yeah, just making the same guitar.
Cedar Creek Custom Case Shop is your premier fretted instrument custom case maker, and we invite you to create a musical instrument case unlike any other, one that's unique to you. Every Cedar Creek custom case is hand-built by highly skilled craftspeople using only select woods, Providence Forge hardware, and premium instrument-friendly materials. At Cedar Creek Custom Case Shop, we are dedicated to helping you design the case of your dreams. Find out more at cedarcreekcases.com. It's a peacefulness, and you talk about that, and I find it to be... We talked recently about some creators, and that you see the maker in the work. We were talking about Rolf Spuller and his Bird of Paradise, and that Rolf was consistent with his Bird of Paradise, and that there are characters like this. But when you look at your work, Uli, because they're so countercultural, it seems provocative, but yet you also talk about peace and quiet workflow, and that seems a bit juxtaposed sometimes. Sometimes your guitar designs can be loud amongst the other traditional guitars. You know, they really stand out. But on a personal level, you're a no bullshit guy, but you're also a very peaceful guy. You're a peacemaker. You're a very good and dedicated friend. You're a friendly person and easy to get along with. You know, you like to encourage other people. I watch you do it. I watch you encourage other guitar makers and people around you. You're very easy to get along with, while at the same time you're disagreeable, but you're not an angry person, but you're just willing to say, no, it's not that way, you know, or I don't see it that way. And so I think people would be very surprised to know that the creator of these guitars is this very easy to communicate, friendly, peaceful guy that you are, to be honest, because there's an edginess to certainly to the Tesla and the Birdfish. The Niwa looks quite unusual, but when you get into it philosophically, it's very tulip shaped. Niwa means garden. There's this you can see the friendly guitar maker in.
But Jimmy, it's only because of the ecosystem of the environment, because it's the guitar world and the and the Caldron iconity. So if it would be interior design, it would be everything but contradictive or provocative. That would be just nice. More of these, please. But it's because of, since music is such a cultural expression, a personal expression, and it used to be, music always starts with a kind of new wave or provocation, doing something new, and then it's implemented, and then we bind it together with the time, movement where it happened, and then it's a kind of an orthodox way, and with the next wave it happens the same thing. It always happened, and so it's just the problem that it's the environment of music where I'm in. Maybe therefore it doesn't. It's seen provocative, but just in the field of design or interior design, it would never be.
So do you feel like a legal alien? An Englishman in New York,
No.
Do you feel like you are, because it seems to me you're very comfortable with the guitar world.
Yeah, it's not my problem that we have this cultural thing.
Yeah.
So it is as it is. It took me, of course, a little bit to understand that these harsh reactions that I realized, even at the first messe and a little bit less at the NAMM show, but then on comments later, that these harsh reactions have not to do with me as a person, but I got it immediately. So it's nothing with me, because with everyone I encountered and went into talks, this didn't happen. Not at all. 100% not at all. So I knew that if I would, even people who really hated that guitar would not have hated when there would be friends of cousins of mine and came to a workshop with it. They would have digested and perceived this guitar totally different, like, oh, this is crazy. This man is freeing himself and he does what he wants, and he has thoroughful thinking, and he's a free spirit. But this is another environment than this person coming to my mind, my mindset, and sees it through my eyes. While when my guitar comes into his mindset and his way of understanding contradictory culture, I get into his mindset, and of course it's his right and his personal belonging to react however he wants. So this comment, like, what is this piece of shit here, and what does it have to do with guitar, is an absolute legitimate reaction on this guitar, because I intrude his world in that moment. Not intentionally, it just happens.
And you just anticipate and expect the reaction, and you're okay with it.
Oh yes, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, and this is remarkable. I know you don't see it that way, but
otherwise I would have not continued to build the guitar, and we would not sit here,
Yeah, no, yes. You talk about it in such a casual way, and we live in a time where people are told they're not allowed to have opinions. They're not allowed to talk about certain things. And so for you to be so okay with the idea that other people have such a different reaction to it and such, honestly, is just refreshing. That's all.
Yeah,
I don't mean to complain about people. I just mean that it is uncommon to hear someone say what you're saying, and I love it. I would be very happy to hear more people talking the way you're talking right now. Yeah,
but Jamie, it's only uncommon now. It's only uncommon now because it's infectious process now in society. But look, you pointed out that the birdfish is almost 30 years old.
Yeah.
And this reaction is something that I was encountering since almost 30 years.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I know shitstorms before shit was invented. That's long ago. So I had to adjust my life to this new thing they invented, shit other people didn't know yet.
Yeah,
and now everyone is confronted with that. Nevertheless, what you say, and I have a much longer history and for me how to get along with that. Therefore, I'm really relaxed in that because I believe in it's never meant as it is. It's a matter of different, so to say, space concepts. So if an information happens in your mind or in your environment or environment, it has a different reaction.
Yeah.
So it's not evil, it's just as it is. And we are in an evolutionary process to get along with it. And I've absolutely found my peace with it because it's something you can't change. It's just as it is.
I absolutely agree with you. I live my life in a very similar way of this. And I try and communicate that as much as possible to the people whom we interact with, especially because we take these confronting ideas to the public in my other work, and so I do exactly that. I say, when you say, oh, who's going to play that? Well, I don't know. That's you're just telling me that you have no vision of that because it's not it's not the object you see on someone dressed in this way on a particular environment. You literally have no imagination for it yet, but that's the way it is with all objects, until you get some context for it. And so, a guitar that has no context for me is an exciting proposition. It's the unknown. It's something new to experience. Right. But people are not commonly thinking this way. And so actually engaging with unusual cultural objects gives me an opportunity to speak with people about our culture, our perspective, the way we approach things, curiosity, openness, good and bad. Is there really a good and bad, with these things? It's a matter of it's useful or not useful for a particular context, right? And to find out, pick it up, engage it, see what happens, because those things that you love today didn't exist at one point in time. And it's because someone engaged in a way that didn't yet happen, that became the thing that you love and that shaped you as a person. And so we would do much better not to think of the world in good and bad. And we recognize there's positive and negative, and there is absolutely evil in the world. We know it, right?
But it's not the guitars.
But it's not the guitars. Exactly. And it's usually not your neighbor either, or the person, at the gas station, it's just different experiences and different perspectives and ways to see the world. And it's really lovely to have a chance to engage with someone else's ideas and have a moment to walk in their shoes, the proverbial saying is, and when I have a chance to come to other cultures and sit and have a conversation with someone like yourself, I get to experience the perspective of someone who sees the world from that seat instead of this seat, And I have a really high value for this. I love this. And I'm really, I always enjoy our conversations.
Me too.
Absolutely have a better life for knowing you. I feel like I get to enjoy, the world, and I have learned things from you, and a perspective, and just in general, thank you, and thank you for taking the time to be so generous.
Thank you for inviting me to that podcast.
Yeah.
It's an honor and a pleasure as well to me.
Is there a question that I should have asked you that I didn't ask you?
Huh.
Something that you wanted to say or talk about? Because you and I talk about a lot of topics, and there's no way we're going to fit it into this podcast. But for today, there's something.
No, there's no particular question left to me. So yeah.
Well, thank you. It's a great reminder that even with the people and the situations that we're so familiar with, there's often something we still don't know and something to learn. And
that's right.
And I thought I knew a lot about your work and the Birdfish and your things, and I learned a lot today, I think.
I thought too I knew a lot.
Well, that's exactly the right sentiment. So anyways, thank you, Uli.
Yeah. Great to have you here.
Yes, thanks. All right. Thank you for watching and listening. You can find more episodes wherever you listen to your podcasts. And a special thanks to those who support us on Patreon. It's your support that enables us to do this work.